Hi amazing family, how are we all doing today? Hope you're doing fine. So in today's tutorial I'll be showing you how to make this beautiful jacket, and these are the materials that will be required for that purpose. This beautiful Ankara fabric, of course my tape rule and all of that. So let's just get right into it. Now the first thing I'm going to be doing is to rule out a straight line, and my jacket measurements are thus as you can see on the screen. So I folded my fabric using the largest circumference, on which happens to be my hip of 38 inches, and added my sewing allowance to it. Now I took in my shoulder measurement, divided by 2, and I inserted that. The next thing I did was I measured my chest line measurements. By the way, I'm using a freehand method to do this because a lot of people have been requesting that I do a freehand tutorial, so this is one of it. So this is me marking 8 inches for my chest line measurement. I ruled that into a straight line, and then went ahead to also measure my shoulder to nipple, which happens to be 10 inches. I marked that as you can see me do. I went ahead also to insert my shoulder to my half length, which happens to be 15 inches. And then from my shoulder also I had to go ahead and measure the length of my blazer, which happened to be 28 inches. After I was done inserting all my horizontal measurements, I used my ruler to rule all of them into a straight line, as you can see me do. At this juncture, I went ahead to insert my neckline measurements, which happens to be 3 by 1 for the back and 3 by 3 for the front. My shoulder slope is 1 inch, and that is what I did. I now went ahead to insert my bust measurement on the chest line, which is 35 divided by 4 plus 1.5 inches sewing allowance. I did the same thing for the waistline, but on the waistline I had to insert 1.5 inch for my dart. Inserted my waist measurement divided by 4 plus 1.5 inch plus 1.5 inch. Now the 1.5 inch is my sewing allowance, and the other 1.5 inch is my dart. I'll be taking 0.75 on both sides differently. Then on my hip measurement, I went ahead to insert my hip. To get my hip line from the waistline, I came down by 10 inches, and on that 10 inches I went ahead to insert my hip measurement. I hope you understand. I'll take that again. From my waist I came down by 10 inch, and on that 10 inch I inserted my hip measurement, like you can see me do right now. So the next thing I did was to insert my neck width. That is 3 inches by 3 inches, and this 3 by 3 is going to be applicable only for the front. So I used my ruler to extend this line, this 3 by 3, so that it will get to the center front pieces, like you can see me do. And then I took it out, I extended it by 4 inches. That is the width of my lapel like collar. All right, then I used my ruler to draw this triangle like shape up to the waist area, and at this waist area I'm going to be coming out by 0.5 inch, like you see me do. Now this 0.5 inches, I'm going to be taking it all the way to the hem of this blazer. Now I went ahead to make my triangle like shape like a lapel, and this is me measuring out my 0.5 inch up to the hem of it. And then I went ahead to cut this out like you are seeing me doing, and we're almost done. So when it got to this neckline, the first thing I did was to cut the back first, all right, and then flipped the back so I could deepen the lapel like stuff for the front, the lapel like neckline for the front, like you can see me do. So after I was done, the next thing I did was to insert my dart, and my dart was taken at 3.5 inches. So I measured it from the bust point up until the hem. I just ruled that into a straight line, and then I opened it up at the waist area by 0.75. Remember, our dart was taken at 1.5 inch, which means I'm going to be taking 0.75 on both sides. All right, so this is me ruling my dart length from the bust point up to the hem of the blazer. All right, so my dart length for the back is going to be stopping at 1 inch above the hem of the blazer. That's from the hem. I'm going to come up by 1 inch. That is where my dart length is going to stop. And like I said, I'm going to be opening up the dart at the waist area by 0.75, which is what I just did. And I'm going to using my ruler to connect that to get the wedge-like shape. So after I was done inserting all of that, the next thing I did was to, bring out my pattern to see what it looks like. And then I also went ahead to ensure that I made notches on those areas, especially on the waist area, on the bust point, on the dart legs, on the around the hem of the blazer. I just had to make all those strategic notches so that it will serve as a guide when I'm eventually coupling the dresses, right? So now this is me trying to, replicate what I have on the patterns, replicating it both on the front, on the back, because my chalk only appeared on one side. So I'm just trying to do the same thing. But for this particular front piece, instead of doing 3.5, I'm doing 4 inch, because I have 0.5 that I'm going to use to join around that lapel area. All right, so this is just me replicating everything I've done on the back onto the front. So the next thing I want to do at this juncture is to cut out my facing. Now, because it's going to be like a lapel, like I want the fabric to be used to line it, so I don't want another fabric to be showing in front. So the next thing I did was to cut out my lining. All right, I'll drop the link to how I drafted it. I just placed my pattern on this fabric, the pattern of the sleeve, and cut that out. All right. Okay, guys, so this is my patterns. I have ironed hairstay on it to give it some form of stability, and also went ahead to mark out my darts using my pencil, so that this is going to be an easy thing for us to do. All right, I also ensured that all the necessary markings that I did with chalk, I used my pencil to replicate them. Thank God I'm using white hairstay, so my distance are visible. So to take the dart from the hem, I came up by 2 inches, and then on the bust point I came down by 1 inch. That is the length of my dart. All right, from the bust point I came down by 1 inch, and on the hem I came up by 2 inches. So that is the length of the dart for the front body. Same thing applies to the back too, but for the back, at the hem area I came up by 1 inch. So I went ahead and did that, and after I was done, this is what it looked like. Okay, now this is the facing for the lapel I had cut earlier. I had already ironed interfacing on it, right, like you can see me do. So my lining is going to start from the place where my interfacing stopped. The black fabric is going to start from this underbust all the way down. So I'm going to be using a black fabric for that purpose. So guys, I went ahead to iron my darts for the fabric and the lining. And the next thing I did was to join the shoulders for the fabric separately and for the lining separately. And then after I was done, I used a pin to ensure that both the fabric and the lining are aligning around the shoulder area, because I was going to be using a backed out seam to finish this jacket. This kind of suit finishing, that's what I'm going to be using to make this jacket. All right, so I took my time to ensure that I used my pins to hold the neckline in place, hold the lapel in place, hold the hem in place, so that I can just sew at once. So guys, in case you're watching this video for the very first time, I am begging you in the name of the Lord that you subscribe to this channel, because we have so many amazing video tutorials coming your way and you don't want to miss out. And if you're a returning subscriber, thank you very much once again for always making this place your home. God bless you. So that was more like a commercial break. So let us continue from where we stopped. So after I was done doing the notch, I went to my ironing table, I gave it a good press, and I flipped it inside out, and then joined the back pieces for the lining and the fabric. Use hemming gum to do that so that it will be in place when I want to iron it. So the next thing I did was to align the front and the back pieces so that I would join them at the sides. I did that for the fabric differently and for the lining differently, and I joined them together, and also notched the waist area to allow it to open properly. I also went ahead to iron, and this was what it looked like. Now this is time for me to fix my sleeve. Because my lining is short, I had to join at the hem first, because I was going to use it to turn up the sleeve, to pull the fabric up a bit, right? And then when I had finished joining at the wrist area, I now went ahead and joined it at the side like you see me do. And when I was done, I went to the ironing table and gave it a good press, and then flipped it inside out. We are almost done with this tutorial. This is easy peasy. As you can see me do, I'm opening the seam allowances. Please don't forget, for every stitch you make, please accompany it with a good press. All right, this also helps to ensure that you have a finished outfit, properly finished outfit. So this is me flipping it inside out, and right about now I just want to go and attach it to my already completed jacket bodies. All right, so this is me properly aligning everything. Like I said, my sleeve is short, so I just want to ensure that the shoulders and the sides are aligning. And also note, whenever you're fixing your sleeve, you want to make sure that your allowance is positioned in a triangular form so that it can allow you raise up your hand properly as you should. All right, I used my pins to secure the fabric and the lining together so that I can hold them in one piece and then attach it to my jacket. So guys, I went ahead to do that ASAP and I was done. So this is what it looks like, the finished product. And then I just used my scissors to trim off every rough edges around the armhole area. Of course, you want to ensure that you weave this if you want though. And voila, this is what it looks like. So if you found this video very helpful, please don't forget to like. And if you're new to this channel, please subscribe, all right? Thank you so much for watching. Until I come your way next week, do have an amazing week ahead.